Up to now, all of our text animations have animated on one character at a time. And even with the cascading animation, text is still animating character by character. In this chapter, I'll show you how to animate word by word, and this involves two techniques. You have to animate the selector word by word, and if you're animating rotation or scale, you might also want to change the anchor point grouping option. If you have the exercise files and you'd like to preview this comp, open the Comps Finished folder and it's example 04. To get started, I'll open example 04 starter, and since the background is a little distracting, either turn off the eyeball for the background movie, or you can solo the text layer. And if you don't have the exercise files, create a title with a number of words all on one line. The first thing we'll do is add a text animator, and we're going to be animating opacity. So I'll select Animate Opacity, twirl down the range selector, again check that I'm counting in %, and at time 0, I'll turn on the stopwatch for start. And this is a simple typing on animation style, so I'll be animating start from 0 to 100%. So the selector is going to move across the type. I'll change the opacity value to 0, and at the beginning, when characters are selected, they'll be invisible, and as the start selector moves across the type, the text will type on. Now you'll notice it's typing on one character at a time. To change this, twirl down the Advanced section in the animator and look at the Based On pop-up. The default is characters. And when you're using the default, it also includes spaces. There's also an option to exclude spaces. So if you're noticing that as you're typing on, it's spending time fading up a space, by setting it to characters excluding spaces, it won't spend time on the spaces. It'll just go directly to the next character. The next option is words. Now as the start selector moves across the type, it's fading on the title word by word. Now to see the next option, lines, in action, you'll need to have more than one line. Otherwise it will just fade on the line all in one go. But if we select our title and press return, so now we have two lines, the first line will fade up and then the second line. And so on, the more lines you have. 3 lines or 4 lines, it will fade up line by line. Let me undo and we'll return to words. Now notice as the animation is progressing, words are fading up. If you don't want that fade, you can change the smoothness parameter to 0. Now words will just pop on. There'll be no transition whatsoever. Setting smoothness to 0 can work for opacity and also for other special cases, but as soon as you add other properties, let's say we add position, you'll probably find you need to set the smoothness back. I can change the words either higher or lower. In this case, it's going a little lower, and as I hit play, they don't appear to move up. So if you're not getting a transition, check that the smoothness parameter is not set to 0. If I set it back to 100%, you can see the text is doing a full transition. Now changing the selector to be based on words is fine when you're animating properties such as position, opacity, color, and so on. But if you're animating based on words or lines, and you also want to add rotation or scale to a text animator, you'll want to know about the group alignment option. And that's what I'll cover in the next movie.